Welcome to Bird Spray Sports, where we can cover Ravens and Orioles news. We're your hosts TJ and Jared. And in this video, we're going to be doing a pregame for upcoming Monday night matchup against the Detroit Lions. A game that's going to be very exciting. Expect a lot of offensive fireworks. But most importantly, we expect to win and improve to 2-1. And just to start off with just our opening outtakes of the game. Um, we're gonna we can ex we might expect to get Isaiah Likely back. He's been, limited in the practices this week. Um, so hopefully, I'd probably doubt it, but
Mhm.
hopefully he can play in the game. But it would be nice to get him back in that offense. But besides that, we're gonna have Marlon back on the defense. We should have Jair back on there as well. So that's good. We should have Matty BK as well. He's been a little bit limited in practices this week.
Yeah, he
But
isn't practice at
overall,
all.
Matty BK?
He isn't practice at all.
Oh, I thought he was limited.
Yeah, it's a neck injury.
Wow. You might have him out as well as Van Noy. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, and Ricard.
Yeah, Ricard too. And we
Hmm.
probably won't get Ricard back until after the bye week, it seemed like. But
Hmm.
overall, I still feel like we have the firepower to compete with them, especially this early on in the season, and I just hope that, it doesn't become another thing where, we let their receivers beat us, because they have a great receiving core, arguably top five in the league. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and even Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, he's a receiving threat as well, because he just has an acceleration type speed. So we're going to need our corners to be very locked in. We need the defense to be locked in. And, we need to take a page out of what we did to them in 2023 when we beat them 38-6. We got to get pressure on Jared Goff.
Yeah,
He's a stationary QB, just like Joe Flacco. So once you get pressure on him, 99% of the time you got him. And if we don't have Matt BK, that's going to be tough to get. That's going to be tough to get. But we're going to have to rely on guys like Mike Green, David Ajabo, John Jenkins. We need those guys to step up. And especially Owe. We're going to have to call on their card in this game. And I don't know if they can do it, but actually, I'm not going to say that. I know that they can do it. They're NFL professional players. This is what they, trained their entire life for, so they have to do it. So hopefully they can get that pressure. I feel like the defense is going to be the most important thing in the game, you know. So before we get to the offense, what is your opinion on the defense? This game,
but our defense or their defense?
our defense.
Our defense. Well, I mean, I think every week I say the same thing. The trenches are going to be important. And I feel like I'm a broken record every week, when it comes to that, but it really is, and if we're not going to have Mads, that's a huge loss. We need interior pressure in this game to get in Goff's face and like how you had mentioned and we need guys like Travis Jones and Aeneas Peebles and John Jenkins, all of them to step up interior wise and to make sure that we can make Jared Goff uncomfortable, and it's going to be up to our secondary to lock these guys down. I mean, if Jair is going to be back this week, then we need him to be the Jair of old, meaning locking down corners. I mean, locking down a lockdown corner, and I mean, he should know these guys. I mean, he played in the NFC North, so he should know these guys that, obviously the Packers and the Lions play in the same division. So, um, it's going to be interesting to see if he's active. Like we are going to be down Van Noy and Van Noy Ricard, possibly Metabike, so that's just not going to be ideal for us. Obviously, health hasn't really been on our side so far, as much as we would have wanted it to, I guess I should say, but obviously we lost our Darius Washington earlier this year, like way earlier this year, so we don't even have him. I don't think we're going to have him at all this year, so. It's going to be important for the trench work. Like I said, the trench work is going to be important. Do not let Jahmyr Gibbs run all over you tomorrow or on Monday. That pass game, that run game is going to open up that play action, and that's when Jared Goff is going to cook. And we can't have that. So it's really going to be important for them to just shut down Jahmyr Gibbs or limit him like how the Browns limited Henry. We're not saying he needs to be negative yardage by the end of the game. It'd be nice, but just try to limit him to limit him to short games. Short gains. 2 yard gains. 3 yard gains, 1 yard gains. Anything past that, you're running into dangerous territory. I haven't been impressed with our run defense so far this year, or pass rush at all. So it's going to be interesting to see maybe if they work to see for some trades, this trade deadline to bolster up that defensive line. But that's the topic for another video. But they really need to show up this game. We can't have another, like another Ravens Bills game here. We just can't afford that. And the offensive line, you need to be heads up ready this whole game. We can't have Falele being turned around like a turnstile and Voorhees being turned around as well. We need these guys to be locked in. And like I said, if they're not, changes need to be made. I'm not saying like fire Harbaugh or nothing. I'm saying on the line, they need to be made because we cannot roll out this five all year if they're not going to learn and grow. At least there were points last year where the offensive line seemed to learn and grow, but this year it seems like they're just too much up and down and a little bit too much down, so need the offensive line to be on point. Need our receivers to get open quicker. Maybe we can find some quick plays for Lamar and Zay. If Likely's back, maybe he can be another short game guy as well. Maybe we can have some screen plays. If they're gonna blitz and stuff, maybe we can have some screen plays. On the lines. Not entirely sure the success rate of screens with us, but none of that Zay Flowers. Jet sweep stuff. We don't even see that. Like that doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
End arounds, all that stuff. No, we're good. We don't the lateral movements. We don't work very well for some reason. So and run it to the left side.
Yeah, and it kind of, touch on your point about, finding guys that are open. I would watch, when the Packers played the Lions week 1, and I got to see a couple of clips of when the Lions played the Bears, just last week. They leave a lot of guys open, and I feel like
Yeah,
Lamar will be able to exploit the middle of the field. We have to attack that as well as other intermediate routes as well. And there was a couple throws that Caleb Williams missed the last game. Everybody was talking about DJ Moore was wide open, he missed a throw. I don't think Lamar misses that. And so I think that's something we can exploit. They don't have guys like DJ Reed. I mean, I'm sorry, Carlton Davis. They don't have Carlton Davis anymore, who's their top corner, and Terry and Arnold, which is one of their corners. I think he's allowed some of the most yardage this season to NFL wide receivers. So that's going to be, I think those are great matchups that our wide receivers be able to exploit. Guys like Zay, guys like Bateman, who are very shifty, can get open. And then we have, our, possession guys are, security playing guys like D Hop, will be able to get us those short yardage, I feel like.
yeah,
So I like our matchup against their secondary a lot. And I
me
feel
too.
like that's something we can exploit.
Yeah,
If Derrick Henry takes a little bit longer to get going.
absolutely, absolutely. Which that's another thing. We gotta get Derrick Henry going. We can't have back-to-back games of Derrick Henry slowing down. We need Derrick Henry to get going. Obviously, we need him mainly for like later in the year in the postseason and stuff, but we also need him right now. Which these are big games and hopefully he has another one of those, like I think I was watching I forgot what it was, but I think it was Zay or something like that was doing some kind of interview or something, and he said that Derrick Henry all week going up to the Bills game last year on Sunday Night Football, that was here. He said that he's gonna break one, like it's his game, whatever. He's gonna eat or whatever. And the first play of the game, obviously the 80-yard touchdown. Everyone remembers that. That was amazing. I'm not saying that we need to have it again. I mean, it'd be awesome, but hopefully he's like that this week. He has a hungry mentality, and we know when Derrick Henry has a hungry mentality, he's ready to eat.
Sorry about that, guys. Had some technical difficulties on my side, but we're backing up now. So, as I was talking about with my previous point, we just need, our offense to get going. We need to get Derrick Henry going against the Lions, and like I said, I mentioned that I almost said the Ravens. The Lions have the 15th ranked rushing defense so far. So, they're very vulnerable to the run. I feel like, we have one of the best running backs in the league, and, we should be able to exploit that.
Absolutely. So with that being said, you ready for some stats?
Let's get to it.
Stats and tidbits. I've never used that word before.
You feeling Hollywood today?
I'm feeling smart today. Anyways, the Patriots. Yeah, they're not gonna say something stupid immediately. Uh, the Lions, offensive statistics. They average 32.5 points per game, which is third in the league. They average 378.5 yards per game, which is fifth in the league. They average 0.528 yards per points per play. I'm sorry, which is second in the league. They average 6.2 yards per play, which is fourth in the league. Their 36% third down conversion rate is 23rd, which is 23rd in the league. On their fourth down conversion percentage is at 80%, which is 11th in the league. The red zone scoring touchdowns percentage is at 63.64%, which is 14th in the league, and their TDs per game is at four, which is second in the league. So they scored a lot of touchdowns. A lot of that is probably skewed from last week, but teams like get them on third down. Um, that's important. That's gonna be important. Get them to third down. It seemed not to be that it functioned that well on third down. Or maybe that was mostly from the Packers game and they didn't have a lot of third downs in the Bears game, but I'm not sure. But anyways, their rushing statistics, their rush play percentage is at 42.28%, which is 17th in the league. Their yards per rush is at 4.3, which is 18th in the league. Their rushes per game is at 26, which is 13th in the league. Their rush yards per game is at 111.5, which is 15th in the league. Their rush touchdowns per game is at 1, which is 8th in the league. Their passing statistics, their pass play percentage is at 57.72%, which is 16th in the league. So it's kind of a balanced offense. Um, their completion percentage is at 80.6%, which is first in the league. So they're really pulling a lot of their passes. Their yards per pass is at 8.3, which is sixth in the league. Their passes per game is at 33.5, which is 17th in the league. Their pass yards per game is at 267, which is fourth in the league. Their interception thrown percentage is at 1.49%, which is 18th in the league, and their QB sack percentage is at 5.63%, which is 13th in the league. So, I know a lot of these offensive numbers are going to be skewed from their poor offensive showcase in the Packers game. So, but it could be also be the other way forward, where it's skewed because of their one good game versus the Bears, who are never good. So, very very interesting to see how they show up on Monday. So, if you
Yeah.
can read the defense.
Going on to the defense. Opponent points per game is 24. It's 24, which is 22nd in the league. So not too hot, on the defensive side. Opponent yards per game is 302.5, which is 10th. Opponent points per play is 0.432, which is 24th. Opponent yards per play is 5.5, which is 22nd. That should be a good stat, we should look at. Opponent third down conversion percentage is 47.83, which is 25th. Almost at 50% there. Opponent fourth down conversion percentage is 33.33, which is third. So they're very good on fourth downs. Opponent red zone scoring touchdown percentage is 71.43.
Mm,
So that also be something we should look at. And
absolutely.
opponent touchdowns per game is 3 touchdowns per game, which is 22nd. Rushing defense. Opponent rush play percentage is 46.85, which is 23rd. Opponent yards per rush is 4.1, which is 13th. Opponent rushes per game is 26, which is 14th. Opponent rush yards per game is 106, which is 15th. And opponent rush TDs per game is 1, right at 1, which is 17th. For their passing statistics, opponent pass play percentage is 53.15, which is 10th. Opponent completion percentage is 67.27, which is 21st. Opponent yards per pass is 7.7, which is 27th. Opponent passes per game is 27.5, which is 6th. Opponent pass yards per game is 196.5, which is 12th. Opponent interception thrown percentage is 1.82, which is 12th. And sack percentage is 6.78, which is 16th.
So again, the good seems like their defense is not great.
Yeah,
Not
middle of
great.
the road.
Yeah, middle of the pack. They have some great statistics, here and there, but I think this is definitely something we could exploit. I'm kind of interested to see what we're ranked in things. Okay, I guess it just won't tell me. Anyway, so move on to individual player statistics now. The Lions offense, their quarterback is Jared Goff. Um, so far this season, he's 54 for 67, which is good for an 80.6 completion percentage for 559 yards. He has 6 touchdowns to 1 interception. He has a 125.1 QBR or quarterback rating. Their rushing leaders, their main running back is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. He has 21 carries for 113 yards. That's 5.4 yards per carry. His longest is 42, and he has a touchdown on the year. David Montgomery, their second back, has 22 carries for 82 yards, which is good for 3.7 yards per carry. His longest is 18, and he also has a rushing touchdown this year. And that seems to really be it. And everything else seems to be just running back based. Their wide receiver one, Amon-Ra St. Brown, has 13 receptions on 17 targets, 160 yards. That's good for 12.3 yards per catch for three touchdowns, and he averages 80 yards per game, with his longest being 34. His longest reception 34. I should probably said the other way. The wide receiver two, Jamison Williams, has six receptions on nine targets, 131 yards, which is good for 21.8 yards per catch. He has a touchdown on the year. His longest reception is 64 yards, and he averages 65.5 yards per game. Sam Laporta, their tight end one, has nine receptions on 13 targets for 105 yards, which is good for 11.7 yards per catch. He has no touchdowns. His longest is 32. His longest catch or reception is 32 yards, and he has a touchdown on the year. Isaac Tesla has two receptions on two targets for 42 yards, which is good for 21 yards per catch. He has a touchdown. His longest is 29 yards, and he averages 21 yards per game. I think they've both been one-handed catches, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield has 13 receptions on 13 targets for 41 yards, which is good for 3.2 yards per catch. He doesn't have a touchdown. His longest is 8 yards, and he averages 20.5 yards per game. And I probably don't need to rate anybody else. So offense definitely is superstar focused, obviously, with Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm Ross A. Brown. I won't say Jared Goff is a superstar, but he's definitely a serviceable quarterback for them. Anyways, if you can move on to the defense, we'll do it like how we did last week. We'll name like the top five or six leaders and tacklers, and then we'll do sacks and all that stuff. So just read off the tackles right now, and then I'll sort it for you when you're ready for the sacks.
All right, Jack Campbell, he's been able to play in both games so far this season. He has 18 total tackles. Terran Arnold has also been able to play in both games so far. Has 12 total tackles. Derek Barnes also has 12 total tackles. Brian Branch, the safety, has 11 total tackles. Alex Anzalone has 10 total tackles. DJ Reed, 10 total tackles. Marcus Davenport has 5. Pat O'Connell, Pat O'Connor has 4. And Zach Cunningham has 4. Al Quadin Muhammad has 4 as well. Amik Robinson has 4. Kirby Joseph, the star safety, has 4. And Grant Stewart has 3. And I'm end at Aiden Hutchinson, the star defensive end. He has 2. And so, one thing that stands out is everybody's been able to stay relatively healthy so far.
Yep.
So it's good for them. As far as sacks, Aiden Hutchinson has 1 sack. Al Quadin Muhammad has a sack. Marcus Davenport has a sack. Brian Branch has a sack. And that's it for their sacks.
I'll just have to tackle for losses, I guess.
Brian Branch has 3 tackles for loss. Aiden Hutchinson has a tackle for loss. So does Al Quadin Muhammad. So does Marcus Davenport. So does Derek Barnes.
Which one do you want to do? Interceptions or pass deflected? Passes defended, whatever.
Maybe pass defenders since they don't have any picks. Terran Arnold has 2 passes deflected. So does Tyleek Williams as a defensive tackle. Wow. Kirby Joseph has a pass deflected, and Brian Branch as well.
And they only go on pick. He forced fumbles. Only one. Brian Branch is really
Yeah,
doing it
he's
for
nice.
them. He really is doing it for them. I don't think that we have anything else. We already read all of that. So, I obviously had a bad start to the year with, getting kind of beat up by the Packers, which is not surprising. The Packers have looked fantastic to start the season. Um, Many wonder if they have maybe peaked too early so far. So, that's going to be interesting development throughout the season. But I think they're just that good. Um, but so I know I know the Lions are gonna want to get back versus them later in the year whenever they play them. So that's gonna be a good battle between those two teams. But I guess we can go into before we go into our which one do you want to do first? I don't which one did we do first last week? Was it the game prediction stuff or was it like the other league games predictions? Which one did we do
We did
first?
our bowl game predictions first.
Okay, so we'll do the bowl game prediction. And I'm not gonna share my screen and show you. I'm just gonna tell you which ones we picked, and then I want to avoid talking about the Ravens game, so we could save that for the very end. So
Okay.
just do bold predictions right
Okay.
now.
All right. So for bold prediction, I say we get a Jackson 5. Lamar
Okay.
Jackson 5 touchdown pass.
So is that your breakout players, Lamar?
Yeah, he could be bold prediction and breakout.
Okay, my bold prediction is I think that the Ravens defense forces two fumbles. I don't know. I feel like that's a bold prediction. We don't force a lot of fumbles. And I think my breakout player of the game, if he's healthy, no, I'm not gonna go that. I think my breakout player will be, hmm, I'm gonna go Derrick Henry. He had a terrible week last week. I think he's gonna break out for 150.
Um,
And I don't know how many touchdowns, maybe two. So before we get into our game prediction, we'll talk about who we picked to win this week. Um, a BOP pick'ems. I don't I don't know what you want to call them. But so for TJ here, he's obviously already 1-0. Because the Bills won, and we probably would have picked the Bills anyways. But, the other games in the week are the Colts and Titans. TJ picked the Colts. TJ picked the Patriots to beat the Steelers. TJ picked the Texans to beat the Jaguars. TJ picked the Broncos to beat the Chargers. He picked the Bengals to beat the Vikings. The Jets to lose to the Buccaneers. I meant to say the Buccaneers to beat the Jets. The Raiders to beat the Commanders. Which, if you haven't known, Jaden Daniels will not be playing. Not talking to you, but anyone watching. Jaden Daniels will not be playing. That's probably what led him to this prediction. Um, the the Panthers, the Packers will beat the Browns. That's probably gonna be a clobber fest. TJ predicted the Chiefs to beat the Giants, the Eagles to beat the Rams, the Falcons to beat the Panthers, the Seahawks to beat the Saints, the Cardinals to beat the 49ers, and the Bears to beat the Cowboys. So if you haven't already watched our last video, TJ finished 12-4 last week, and I finished 9-7. So not a good showing for me. I got to have a better second week here. But for my predictions, already want to know Bills will beat the Jets. I mean, Bills beat the whatever they're called, Dolphins. I have predicted that the Colts will beat the Titans, the Patriots will beat the Steelers, the Texans will beat the Jaguars, the Chargers will beat the Broncos, the Bengals will beat the Vikings, the Buccaneers will beat the Jets, the Raiders will beat the Commanders, the Packers to dominate the Browns, the Chiefs to probably dominate the Giants, the Eagles to beat the Rams, the Falcons to beat the Panthers, the Seahawks to beat the Seahawks to beat the Saints, the 49ers to beat the Cardinals, and the Cowboys to beat the Bears. So not a lot of differences just between me and what our predictions were. But I did have a few at the end. I think like with the Cowboys and the 49ers and everything. So with that being said, we did leave out one game, which is the Ravens and Lions, which we're gonna go over now. Who do you think is gonna win between the Ravens and Lions, and what do you think the score is gonna be?
so of course, we'll choose the Ravens to win. I feel like we'll win this game. I would say we'll win this game 38-17. I feel like it's very close in the first half. But we start to pull away just like how we did against the Browns, basically. And, we lighted up scoreboard.
All right. I love that. My prediction, I'm gonna go with the Ravens winning 35-25. Um I think that I don't know how it's going to go. Like I don't think this is gonna be a beat down like last time. Like I don't think we're gonna be up like 35-13 and then they're gonna score a few times at the end of the game. I think it's gonna be close for most of the game, like kind of how like you said, but I think we'll pull away. I don't think we'll pull away as much as we did versus the Browns. But I think like we'll be up like I don't know, like what did I say? I said 35-25. I
35-25, yeah.
meant 35-23. Well, I'll go 35-24. That's my final answer. 35-24. But I think the game is pretty like close for most of it. I think we lead like most of the game, then they kind of trail behind us, but we pull away late in the game. That's my prediction. 35-24, Ravens win. Monday Night Football. Me and TJ will be there, which means expect some TikTok content, some YouTube shorts, maybe a mini video here and there. Maybe I'll film the Ravens intro since we're going to be virtually right there. So maybe I'll do that. It's gonna be a primetime game, blacked out. We're gonna get the wristbands, fireworks, light show, all of that. So should be exciting. First primetime game, or first home primetime game of the year. Should be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to get that dub, and we're going to go to 2-1 and go into the Chiefs. So, I think that's all we got for you guys in this video. I'm gonna wrap it up. We just, like I said, we're hoping we get that win, and just continue to get better, continue to get healthier, and let's just get into a groove. Mid-season, on to late season, and on to the playoffs. So, that's all we got for you guys today in this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below who's going to be your breakout player, and also your bold prediction. Also, follow our social medias, our Instagram, our TikTok, our Twitter. Just like Jared said, we're going to be very, this is going to be our closest seats yet to date, any Ravens game we've been to. So, we're going to have a lot of great content for you guys, especially those player entrances. We're going to be right there, so stay tuned for that on our social medias. Also, check out our second channel, Casual Cinema. We might be seeing him soon. We're going to talk about it behind camera, but, stay tuned for, content on that channel. That's all we got for you guys today with Birds Play Sports, and we're out.
Right.